So it's been an interesting past couple of weeks for Nintendo and the Nintendo Switch 2. Of course, at the end of July, we had a Nintendo Direct partner showcase, showcasing off some third-party games coming out on various time points. Now, most of these games were September or October releases, so it kind of made sense to do something like this to hype up some upcoming third-party Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2 games, but for many people, the presentation did fall a bit flat. There wasn't really a big wow factor to it. There was a couple interesting games that were announced there, being day and date with other third-party games on other platforms, but for the most part, it fell a little bit flat for people. And then, of course, last week we had the Indie World Showcase, which 75% of you over on Twitter said Indie Worlds are not Nintendo Directs. Very interesting sort of data that I like to gather from you guys from time to time. But this was a decent showcase, I thought. There was some cool stuff there. Mina the Hollower looks really good. UFO 50 is honestly super fun. It's like one of the best $25 you could spend on a Switch or a Switch 2 game right now. But many people are looking forward towards the future. And some people on different forms of social media are saying that there's going to be multiple Nintendo Directs happening soon and this, that, and the other. They have insider information, and they might, but they also might not. I'm here to just look at the facts. And when you look at the facts of a situation, it does paint an interesting picture for the rest of August when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, because I do think Nintendo is doing something, and they're doing something pretty big, and we already have confirmation of that. It's just how the information is provided to us will be the big question when it comes to this. So what the hell am I talking about? I know what you're saying. You're like, bro, you've been rambling. Like, talk about what you're actually here to talk about. Well, you got to set the table before everyone comes and sits down. So Gamescom 2025 is happening between August 20th and August 24th. And during this time frame, I don't know if we're getting a Gamescom opening night live with Jeff Keighley where he comes out there and takes money from Gamescom to do his little presentations. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that out loud. Just kidding, Jeff. Finger guns like I'm Jake Randall. We're buddies, Jeff. You know I love you. To some extent. Let me get some money, dog. But Gamescom is happening in Germany, of course, and this is a pretty big event for the European marketplace when it comes to games. And Nintendo has announced what they are bringing to Gamescom in forms of demonstrations, or demos, as the kids like to call them nowadays, in which you can play. And you can see here, there's some interesting games here. Obviously, Cyberpunk, Super Mario Party, Country Bear Jamboree, Mario Kart World, Bonanza. You know, these aren't big deals. Like, these are games that are already out. FC 26, which is, of course, our upcoming soccer or football game. I'm not hearing great things about it. It is Frostbite engine as well, much like Madden. And you could sit there and try to convince me that Madden runs great on the Switch too. You're wrong. Like, if you're enjoying it, that's fine. That's a different subject matter than the game actually running well. It does not run well, and I don't understand why people are capping for it so hard, like it's their firstborn child. Like, oh, I got a good baby. He shot up a mall or something like that, but he's a good kid. He's a good kid. Like, this is the level of insanity that I'm seeing with people from this. But whatever, go watch my Madden video if you're interested in that. But there are some very interesting titles here, such as Elden Ring, Tarnished Edition, Hollow Knight, Silk Song, Final Fantasy VII, Intergrade, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, Borderlands 4, Hades 2, Pokemon ZA. And some of these games make sense to be there at the Nintendo booth, but some of them I have big questions about, because this is where things honestly get very interesting, because Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, Elden Ring Tarnished Edition, and Final Fantasy VII, and really Hollow Knight Silk Song as well, these four games, they don't have release dates. We're still very up in the air about these four games and when they are coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. And two of these games I'm buying on day one. Those two games being Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. Elden Ring, sorry, I'll probably skip out on that. And Hollow Knight Silk Song, I don't know, man. It's just been too long for Hollow Knight to come out. But here's where things get interesting, because if you're demoing these games at Gamescom, you would have to imagine that people will be expecting, like, to know when these games come out. And if it was just like one game, if it was Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, okay, that's one thing. That's a first-party Nintendo game. Of course, they're going to want to show that off, give you a little demo, and be like, coming soon or something like that. But I don't feel like you're doing that with games like Elden Ring and games like Final Fantasy VII when it comes to when people are hoping and expecting these games to come out. So many people feel like before Gamescom, there has to be some sort of announcement that happens about the release dates for these games. And if there's multiple games we're talking about, many people are thinking that there's going to be yet another Nintendo Direct presentation. So this is where I kind of want to get into my theories about how this could play out. Is there a chance that this is going to be a Nintendo Direct situation where there's a Nintendo Direct, there's first-party games, there's third-party games, some of these games get dated and stuff like this? Of course there's a chance. There's a chance for a Nintendo Direct to happen any day of the week. Like Nintendo, we try to figure out their cycles and how they do things like that, but it's really just whenever they kind of feel like it. Whenever they want to do one, they're going to do one, and they'll do one and they'll talk about whatever they want to talk about, and then they'll move on to the next one. Much like these Nintendo YouTubers do the day after a Direct wraps up, they're on to the next Nintendo Direct. But are there other options to get release dates for these games between now and then? And do the release dates for these games even have to happen? I don't think they necessarily do have to happen. I think it would be a lot better if they did, because we haven't really seen much of Final Fantasy VII. We saw a good bit of Elden Ring. It looked a little bit rough around the edges. I hope they've sort of smoothed things out with that. And you've seen quite a bit of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond if you looked at like the Treehouse presentations and stuff like that. So is there a chance that this event just comes and goes and there are no dates announced for this? Of course there is. It's just as good of a chance as you would have having a Nintendo Direct. But there are other alternatives that could happen with this. Like I said, I'm not sure if Geoffrey is doing an opening night live sort of thing. But if they are doing a Gamescom opening night live, these three games could very easily be at this presentation. They could be showcased by Jeff. He does a trailer for them, and then a release date is announced. Play it on the show floor tomorrow or whenever it opens up versus when opening night live happens. And I think that would be actually something very interesting that could happen. So now people that are going to try the game out could then learn about the release date of the game before getting to try it, and then get their hands on it when the event is wrapped up for opening night live, and then you could play the demos, play the games, and now know the release date. I honestly think that's a very realistic possibility. I don't think that you necessarily have to have a Nintendo Direct for these games. They could be a part of a Nintendo Direct, and maybe Metroid Prime 4 will get its own dedicated one after we learn about a release date. But I think as far as the release date is concerned, it can happen at something like opening night live. Or of course there's the other alternative that I also think is a very realistic alternative. It's just a social media drop. Bandai Namco comes out and says, oh yeah, we're doing Elden Ring, it's releasing November 3rd or something like that. Metroid Prime 4, here's the release date. We'll do a dedicated showcase for this. I mean, they did a dedicated 8-minute video for Drag X Drive, a game that nobody is buying. Go watch my video on it from yesterday. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's weird as shit, man. And I don't think it's a very fun or imaginative game from Nintendo. Same thing with Final Fantasy VII. Square Enix can announce a release date for that game. I don't think they are restricted to announcing it when Nintendo wants them to announce it to, because it is a multi-platform game that's also coming out on the Xbox at the end of this year at the same time. But when you do look at this lineup of games, there's definitely a feeling like something is happening. Like, we have to start getting release dates for these games. Elden Ring is a 2025 game. Final Fantasy VII is a 2025 game. Hollow Knight Silksong is allegedly a 2025 game. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is allegedly a 2025 game. And there's going to be GameCube stuff there as well. Do you have some GameCube surprises for me? Something new coming out between then and now? But then you could get into the whole theory of where the hell are N64 games and Genesis games and Super Nintendo games and Game Boy games and NES games. We haven't gotten a drop of those in quite a while, Nintendo, which is something you kind of tend to do. You add a new system in and you forget about the old systems. Should we just move on from those systems? Are you not doing games for those systems anymore. If that's the case, that's fine, but I feel like people would like to know. Call me crazy, you know, maybe that's revealing a little bit too much information, and you're hinging on the hopes and dreams that more games will be added to Nintendo Switch Online, even though you have no intention of adding in more NES or Famicom or Super Nintendo stuff. But alas, these are just my thoughts on it. Do you think there has to be a Nintendo Direct that takes place between now and before Gamescom so that we can learn about these games? Do you think these games could be, you know, revealed with the release dates at a Gamescom opening night live, or potentially at Gamescom? Can it be done after the fact? Can it be done by the companies themselves? Where do you kind of lie on this situation? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.